Yes, I am your host, Ashley Owens, your personal networking concierge. And on this show, on RVN TV, 12:30, 1 o'clock on Thursdays, well, 9 a.m. because it's early, we talk to the power networkers of the greater Philadelphia, South Jersey area, and all over the world, because virtual reality and interviews and meetings are something that we are now accustomed to. So yes. I have the pleasure and the privilege of finally having Mr. David Thompson on the show today.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm excited to be here in person.
I love the jacket. It's very nice. I love the blue. I like how you match with the aesthetic. I'm completely clashing with everything, and we're a little worried about the necklace. So today, I know who you are, and you're one of my favorite people. I think one of the first people I actually started to network with a couple years ago. But tell people who you are and what you do, and then you've got some show and tell about what makes you awesome.
Yes, yes. Who I am it's interesting. Three things about who I am are tied to what I do.
Yeah.
And at the very core of it is I'm a brand builder. Companies or personal brands.
Well, what's the name of your company?
Bongo Consulting. And I have a second company called Career Coach Pros. So for Bongo Consulting, we're a strategic marketing firm that works on providing counsel that gets companies to tell their story in the right way, build their brand, be able to connect with audiences, and ultimately grow their business. But they do it through a strategy. And there's so many companies that do not have a strategy. Yeah. They have a business plan, they don't have a strategy. So there's one. We work in the B2B space, primarily with professional practices, in which we love because we know we can make a big impact. One sale, it's not like you're selling widgets. One deal brings in probably the month or the year marketing budget, which we love.
So when somebody calls you, what problem are they typically having?
That's a great question, because it really is across the board. The entry point may be something like, we know our website is old, we're having trouble getting leads, we are looking to grow, don't know how. And the favorite entry point is, somebody told us that we should be doing X. Can you help us? Mm-hmm. And X could be social media or something like that. So they come in with a range of ideas and a range of needs, and at the end of the day, we have to say to them, you can't do any of this without strategy.
Right. And when you talk about strategy, because sometimes strategy and networking are very much up in the air, and it can mean anything. So take me through the process of a client working with you and what the strategy actually entails.
Companies that are successful, that are going to be successful, have a business plan. Mm-hmm. They have audiences they want to go after. They have customers and prospects in which they need to interact with in a more powerful way to become loyal. Mm-hmm. So, too many companies have a business plan and they don't have a marketing plan to execute the business. Right. So what we do is we sit down and do, as many agencies do, the typical discovery process, and learn as much about their companies and the environment, the competition, and particularly their audiences. Who are you trying to reach? What do you know about these people? Right. Because if you know your audience better you know the way to entice them, to stimulate their engagement with them. So we'll develop then those tactics to increase the engagement. Digital is obviously incredibly important, not just social media, but there's a digital foundation. Website, SEO, social media, email, all of the opportunities to reach your audience, almost surrounding them. So I call it surround sound. We develop surround sound tactics that go after your audiences in a very optimal way.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge that they have had? What do you think the biggest challenge is that entrepreneurs, small business owners, and even medium-sized business owners have? Because usually bigger companies have inside counsel to help with the marketing team. But when they come to you, what has been the theme of, like, is it proactive or reactive?
Both.
Both, yeah.
The issue is nobody knows how much it costs to get a new customer.
What does it typically cost to get a new customer?
It varies by industry.
Okay, so let's think
let's talk about one industry in financial compliance.
Which is something I stay away from in my own business because of the compliance that you can't necessarily market a ton because you have to go through. I'm very interested in what you have to say about this, actually.
So somebody like a financial compliance company comes into us and we say, what are you spending on marketing? What worked, what didn't? And typically they say, well, we spent a little bit here, we spent some on social media, we went to a lot of trade shows. And at the end of the day, you find out their budget may have been $250,000, $400,000 for a mid-size financial company. And we said, well, how many clients did you get? What channel brought in clients? And they cannot track it. They don't know how much it cost. They don't know where their customers came from.
But they have this extraordinary budget with no way of tracking it.
Right. So that is the biggest, that's the biggest problem that we see, and they don't identify it as a need. They'll come in, as I said, from different entry points, but at the end of the day, we'll try and say that, get them to put down on paper what they think they got their audiences or companies, where they got their clients from.
Right.
And then we'll deconstruct that.
Interesting. Okay, so now that we know what you do, I want to know what makes you awesome.
Boy, for somebody who likes to interview others,
I know, is this weird?
And don't like to talk, I'm a relentless optimist.
Oh, explain what that means. That just sounds like a really bad therapy appointment.
The human condition, we react to positive energy. So people can't succeed and can't connect to success, I believe, when they're negative.
True.
We all know that. We don't want to hang around with anybody who's negative or who's a pessimist. We don't want to hire them. We don't want to bring them on our team. So being a relentless optimist is that I look for the best in every situation. And even if it's something that requires is a difficult situation that requires a solution. And an old girlfriend said to me one time, will you stop solving my problems and just listen to me?
Right, right.
I said, I can't stop. I want us to get beyond this negativity and get to the positive energy that the world should be based on.
Of course, of
so
course.
People portray themselves too negatively, they think too negatively, and that pervades their work atmosphere, their company. And so what I try and do with everyone is be that optimistic conduit that helps them understand they are wonderful, your company is great, there's nothing that we cannot overcome.
The other cool thing about you, and I think makes you awesome, is that you've got two different color eyes that I just recognized after how many years have we been friends?
Yeah, I think I'm the perfect DNA split between my mother and father.
I love that.
One had green, one had brown.
Well, show me what you brought today.
So, personal branding, I think, is everything in our society because of the need to connect. How can you be a great networker if you don't have a good brand? How can you have a good brand if you don't take the time to understand yourself? So the book the flagship book that really influenced me and got me into the idea of personal branding was written by a gentleman I call the godfather of personal branding, Carl Speak.
Okay.
He wrote this in 2002, and I had the good opportunity to work with him. And it's not about being who you're not, or being something that you're not. It's about being the best that you can be. And Carl talked about this, our values. Live your values, learn your values, decide how to present yourself in a positive way, make a difference for others, and that's at the very core of what you do.
Oh, thank you very much.
So
but also that's the influence that is building up your own brand.
Correct.
So
yes.
that's incredible.
So the other thing that makes me awesome only by association was my mother was in the Miss America pageant and had this opportunity to have her picture taken, as all contestants did, with lovely Marilyn Monroe. And she was absolutely mortified. She said all the contestants were mortified that they had to stand next to the beautiful Marilyn Monroe and that she wasn't wearing a slip.
Oh, goodness. Well, that's her own personal brand. You can't blame the lady for doing it.
So she was the type of person, though, that we found this picture in her closet.
Oh, my gosh.
She never brought it out. And then, of course, I started making copies and giving it to everyone in our family.
Oh, I love that so much. So with that, I mean, kind of going back to that, let's talk about Marilyn Monroe's personal brand.
That's very
I think
interesting.
that would be a really interesting conversation to have because, you know, people give her a lot of flack for being, you know, who she was.
Right.
And so what about what Marilyn Monroe did could actually be duplicated now? And what did she do that was ahead of her time, and how could that, how could she influence more people with their own personal brand with the way that she was?
That is a wonderful question. And she was became such a cultural icon that I think people have tried to appropriate exactly what she did.
Yeah.
She led with the bombshell, even though that she was a very sensitive artist and somebody who was multi-talented, but was pigeonholed into a certain role,
Right.
The stupid blonde, for lack of a better phrase, or the ditzy blonde, as they used to call it.
Yeah.
And she became a cultural icon because how she carried herself. And I think
Which is perception.
Yes.
Right. So if we
And
were
you
to
didn't
kind of
see the pain.
Yeah.
She camouflaged the pain in her life. So she showed the positive.
Yeah.
And it was all about the energy that she created for others and the force of her personality. If you just look at that smile, she just had such a radiant smile that I think that is the number one thing that we talk to with others.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't smile, how can you create a positive first impression?
What do you think with how she had these two different styles of who she was? Would you ever recommend to your client to have to be able to portray what you want to be and not necessarily what you are yet?
Ooh. No.
No.
And you can't hide on who you are today because of social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be found out, and people should get a quick read on who you are. Mm-hmm. We don't want to work too hard in our society to understand if I like somebody or if I can relate to somebody. So if you're portraying one thing and you're over here another, I think you are doing yourself a disservice and not allowing people to see, let's call it, all of your wonderfulness.
So then where do you think is there any merit in faking it till you make it?
Yes.
So how
I
is
know
that?
That's a conflict of what I just said that, but yes.
So can you explain what that means then? Explain the difference.
Faking it to making it is really interesting because we get this question all the time with students, and they haven't figured out how to be genuine and tell their own story, and so they think that they're need to create a different persona in order to succeed in the job market to grow their career. So if somebody is not a positive person, or somebody fights, obviously there's a lot of people that fight depression and have issues that they're trying to overcome. They have, in those cases, a need to fake it, a need to portray that they are somebody else. Where we talk a lot to the kids about and to young professionals is, but get there. Get to be that positive person. Work on these issues. Understand that at the end of the day, there's nothing that you can't overcome.
Right. So when we come back, because we do have to take a break, we're going to talk to you more about your tactical tips and practical takeaways in networking. But also, since you're a Temple professor, I'd love to hear more about what you are teaching those kids over at your marketing class. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Now that's New Jersey. Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
This plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
Everybody, it's a new camera up there. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Connect to Success. Apparently, I'm drunk on a Thursday on RVN TV, where I talk to the power networkers of the Greater Philadelphia, South Jersey area, and all of the world. And I have David Thompson here from Bongo Marketing. I am so excited to talk to you more about the reason why I'm not struggling, but the reason why I'm trying to communicate this effectively is that with starting a business, being a student, being a person who has a job, there is a relevance of you having a personal brand. And the brand, so what's the difference between a personality and a brand? A personality is what you have and a brand is what you cultivate, right? And I always found that a lot of people struggle with, well, what value do I have to be a personal brand? Like, what about me is brandable? But then I think that also includes the storytelling opportunity of how you present yourself, right? So it's cultivating that story, for lack of a better term. So tell me more about your own journey from personal branding to storytelling and how you take your kids, like your Temple kids, along that journey.
I had the great opportunity through Dana Saywitz at Temple to start what I believe is the nation's first course on personal branding.
Wow.
And I had always taught that within other aspects of the courses I was teaching, because so many kids came up to me and said, can you help me with my resume? Can you help me prepare for my interview? I don't know how to present myself. And at the core of every kid's need was a lack of confidence in themselves and an inability to tell their story and express their value. And this extends to the C-suite as well. So either you're going to create your personal brand and allow people to see you for the best that you want to be seen in a way that is powerful and natural, or you're going to let people establish what they think about you. So your brand and all brands are perceptions.
The notion of letting somebody else depict your future has been something that I've struggled with for a very long time until I started my business. And you can get trapped, or at least kids coming out of school. I mean, I'm 32. I was in school, years ago, and you get trapped in what the company is telling you your value is. You get trapped in what your position is rather than what your personality is, and you comply, and that complacency can be drawn out over years, and you don't realize any other way of expressing yourself. So, I'm talking from my own experience. By the time I got to the point where I had tried everything after 18 jobs, and getting the mergers and acquisitions and budget cuts and getting let go for things that were out of my control, became, I'm pissed off enough to now say, well, I've tried everything else. I was likable this entire time, but what happens when I become authentic? And the opportunities opened up like you would not believe. It was like, why have I kept myself into that box for so long? There's something to be said about knowing your value. And we talk about that especially in networking, because as you are of service to somebody else in a networking capacity, there needs to be a value that you're providing them, whether it's a resource, an introduction, a kind word, a positive attitude, whatever it may be, you are of service to that person. So how do you take your kids that are coming out of school, how do you coach them into being able to communicate effectively their own value to somebody else, but then also be of service to that person?
Number one is absolutely, they have to understand who they are and what values guide their life. So this is why this is such a landmark book, because it takes you through some exercises in which you determine what your core values are. You pick from 50 or 60 a list, and you determine what's not important, somewhat important, very important, and then you can distill those to 5 or 7. And they become your guidepost for your life. Caring, optimism, creativity, travel, wealth, happiness, fame, whatever those are. You take an opportunity when you're 20 and put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I stand for. This is what I want going forward from my life. These are my guideposts. So then you have something that allows you to create a foundation for the experience that you provide others. If you're going to be caring all the time. Commit to being caring. Consistency is the biggest problem with branding, personal and company. So if you've picked your values and you're not beholden to those values, and then you're not consistent in communicating those values, you're going to be seen as somebody who's false, not authentic, who's not genuine, and the experience that people get from you will not be consistent, and they won't want to hire you. And so the journey for the kids is first seeing what your values are. Number two, creating the story around who you are based on your values. Translating that into a resume, to a LinkedIn profile, to your social media. Interviewing people and developing those leadership stories and those stories that tell so much about people when they say to you, tell me a little bit about yourself. That is the hardest question for kids to answer. And many
for
people.
Adults, yeah.
So
it's like, what version of me would you like today?
Exactly. And the first answer people usually have is, well, what do you want to know?
Yeah.
Instead of taking the initiative and giving them a powerful elevator speech or an introductory speech. But you can't create that foundation unless you know who you are.
Right.
Unless you understand what guides you and moves you to be the best that you can be.
The importance, though, I think people also struggle with was like, I have these values, but what would be important or interesting to somebody else? And sometimes that also takes, or at least in my experience, because that's a conversation I had to have with myself in the very beginning, was what could I possibly offer somebody that would be of value? And when we talk about those things, we talk about the things that we can bring monetary value.
Yes.
And then being able to break down those top 5, tiers of what makes sense for your personality and what gives you the value is easier to break it down when it's like, it's a feeling that you have, it's a personality trait. It's not something that you have to continue to achieve going forward.
Yes.
Tripling down on your strengths was a big thing for me.
I love that line when you said that.
It was such a different way of looking at how to still be myself,
Yes.
but also how to not be so frustrated with other tasks or things that I was never going to be good at. I found that so interesting. So tell me more about so with your company, now we talked about your kids, with your company, what has been the biggest change over the last year with the way that you've networked? I know things are going virtual, but we're going to have hybrid eventually.
Sure.
So tell me more about your shift and your pivot, but more importantly, what you see trending in marketing right now and what has worked and what has
Storytelling.
Storytelling?
So if we look at the history of social media, we're looking at Facebook, and then came Instagram, and then came Snapchat, or whatever that progression was. And what followed that, each platform developed their story.
Oh, they're like, yeah.
Their storytelling platform.
No kidding.
Facebook stories, IG, IG Live, Snap Stories.
Yep. And now
so
LinkedIn.
Storytelling is how people engage. Because it enables them to share what is, in many cases, authentic about them, about the experience of engaging. And in marketing, it's trended over the years so that brands need peers, brands need their customers telling their story about how they engage with the brand, how they engage with the products and services. So storytelling has become paramount, and it's why we connect as humans. And so the difficulty that most kids, most young professionals, most CEOs have is telling a compelling story about themselves, their company, their direction, and particularly themselves, and making it engaging. So we have to work. I was a journalism major, so I ask great questions, and I can spend 5 minutes with somebody and help them craft a wonderful story about themselves. That's genuine. That's based on who they are, what they've achieved, or experienced, and where they're going.
And how have you taken storytelling and putting it into your own networking practice?
By asking people a lot about their stories. Being a listener. finding out who they are so we know what we have in common, we know what we can engage in, and we know that we can get beyond a lot of peripheral bullshit and start talking about what is meaningful to both of us.
And the meaning and the commonalities, I feel like, are the one thing that helps you build the know, the like, and the trust factor, just
Yes.
like the storytelling opportunity. So many times, and I'm sure you've seen this, you've got people who are in these networking groups and who are doing the activity and have got all this stuff going on, and they're still talking like they're scripting what they want to say. And it becomes where I'm like, listen, I don't even give a damn about what you do there, Chad. Like, I don't care what you do. But if you say something hilarious or give me a way that you fixed a problem,
Right.
it allows me to understand you better, and it's not so much about your title, but how you've been able to accomplish something.
Yes.
It shows me, one, you're competent, and two, that you'll be interesting to chat with. I go off of personality before I even go off of what you do. I think it's the most important thing. If you've got a good storytelling opportunity, it's the only way that I actually retain that information. So I think people need to be telling more stories.
If you're not relatable,
Yeah.
and you cannot create a positive experience in connecting with others at networking events, are they going to bring you on?
Exactly.
Are they going to trust you? If you're not uncomfortable, or if you're not comfortable being with others and being relatable, you can't create that connection to success.
On that note, please look into that camera and tell people how they can find you.
BongoConsulting.com for our marketing practice, and CareerCoachPros.com, and my phone number is 917-502-4265.
David, you're a gem and a wonderful human being, and I'm so glad I got to be 17 steps removed from Marilyn Monroe tonight.
Thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate you having me on.
You're the best, man. So everybody, please make sure to reach out to David for all of your marketing needs as well as your career coaching needs. I feel like there's going to be a lot of things coming up in the next few years around making sure that everything is on point in your life. So make sure you reach out to professionals like David to take your career and your marketing to the next step. Thank everybody for watching. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email ashley@ashleysis.com. We talk about you, your tactical tips and practical takeaways in networking, who you are, what you do, what makes you awesome, and you get to hang out with me with coffee. So it's always a good time. So make sure you email ashley@ashleysis.com, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ash.
Thank you.